Guys, been down south. Today I got a new project. It's kind of similar to an old project I did a while back. Way back when I did a Lowrance Ti9 Ti installed on my Bonafide on the Dry Pod. And I since got my dad's bass boat restored and actually moved that over there. Haven't had a Fishfinder on my cot for a while. And I've got an extra dry pod and I wanted to have one just for down, the 9 was too big really for it from my view. So I ended up going with a Garmin Striker 5. This is just a down view. And so today I'm going to show you how I'm going to basically get this thing mounted on my dry pod. I know a lot of guys have done a lot of different things. I'm going to try to do things a little easier this time than I did last time. And I'm going to just show you what I did, walk you through it, and let you know how well it worked. So stay tuned, hit that like and subscribe. Okay, so first thing I'm going to talk about a couple of premises of what I'm going to do. Number one, when I did the 9 Ti, I did a lot of drilling into the dry box, and I'm not going to do as much. There will be some drilling into the dry box, not as much. And the reason is you've got all that cable from the transducer cable, and there's a good bit of it, especially on the 9 Ti. There was a lot more on that. And I didn't want it out and loose and everything, so I put it in my dry box. So I basically had to run a cable into the dry box and then run it back out the dry box. That was 2 holes just for that transducer to mount back to the thing. Then I've got the power to run out of the dry box to the Garmin. And then, there'll be some holes for the brackets to mount it on top of the dry box. Couple things. I didn't want to do all the extra holes and go through all that, so I'm trying to keep it easy. So I'm planning on just running that transducer cable, just looping it up around the base of the mount and sitting outside. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I don't want to give up that real estate inside my dry box, because what I found out is it made it all nice and neat with the cables inside there, but it did take up some room. And I run some GoPros, multiple GoPros, batteries, you put keys, wallets, different stuff in there, and kind of fills up that dry box. So I want the space in there, so I don't want to put that cable in there. There will be a battery in there, which answers the question how I power this thing. I power this with one of these Nocqua 10 amp batteries, and I really, really like this guy. This thing would run all day on that Lowrance 9 Ti that I used to have on there. So I expected to run this thing a long time. In addition with this, I've got one of these splitters that I can feed off the power here and go to 2 things. I have another feeder where I can, USB ports where I can feed my phone. I can put GoPro chargers on this thing, as well as the battery feed to the Garmin. I do have an extra piece which will feed the Nocqua battery, which I'll wire that to the Garmin directly. And that's my plan for power. A couple things I'm gonna power with the Nocqua. It's gonna be in the dry box. I'm gonna leave the transducer cable outside of the dry box. So the only thing in the dry box will be the battery and that cable coming out, of which we've got some cable glands, same as I used before, to run out of there and basically, provide that watertight connection. A few other things to mention. I did get one of these guys. All right, now I'm just going to tell you something about this right here. This is not the name brand. This is the knockoff on Amazon. I've heard mixed reviews on it. It's a whole lot cheaper. And I feel like this is going to be fine. And the reason I feel like it's going to be fine is because it's much lighter. This unit right here is much lighter than that Lowrance I was using. So I feel like this is going to be fine. It's a knockoff. Time will tell. We're going to find out. The next question to answer is, how am I going to mount the transducer to the bottom of the dry pod? Last time, I did a thing where you drilled through the bottom, mounted some wood, and got it spaced all down and everything like that, so it'd be below the hole. And I did that because that unit had side imaging. This one does not, just down imaging. So my thoughts this time is I want it up inside the hole to protect it a little more. And I think it'll be fine. But here's what I saw somebody do or mention this, and this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not drilling any holes in the bottom to mount that transducer. I'm going to use some Loctite marine sealant. And I'm going to basically just kind of put this on that transducer mount to the bottom of the dry pod and hope it sticks. So that's my plan. So let's get to it. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drill the holes for the bottom of this ram mount. Again, this is a knockoff. And I'm going to use this one, that one, that one, and that one, those 4 holes. So I'm going to try to put on this box here where I want it to go and mark it with a pencil so I know where to drill these holes at. All right, so it's all fitting in here. And I do want to make a note. Last time, kind of look at that. Last time I used, some people use starboard. I actually used an old fiberglass cutting board, a thin one that I got at like the dollar store or something, and I cut a piece to put in here. But honestly, this is pretty thick stuff, but that 9 Ti was pretty big. This Garmin is lightweight, so I don't feel the need to do that. So I'm just gonna, go ahead and put some nuts on here and put some Loctite on. That's gonna be key because they will unthread if you don't put the Loctite on, just from the moving around, transporting everything else. So make sure you put the Loctite on for these guys. All right, next thing we gotta do is we gotta power, and that's where we gotta drill the next hole. This is gonna connect to the back of the Garmin unit, okay? This piece right here. You got your inline fuse already in, but I ultimately need this to go in the box, run through this cable clamp, it'll clamp down on it. So I'm actually gonna have to cut these wires here and splice all these wires back in. Actually, I don't think I need all of them. I think I just need the 2 of them, but I'll double check on that for my use. But basically, I'm gonna go ahead and cut these or find a place to mount. This will be behind everything. So it's probably gonna be back in this corner. Back here is where I'm looking to do this. So I'm probably going to go ahead and drill a hole now that'll fit this, and I'll show you what this looks like when this comes undone. There we go. So you kind of see what's going on with that, right? This part, I'll have to drill a hole for this to fit into. Washer on there, that'll snug down with the cable in it. And then once the cable's suited and I tighten this on it, that's what crimps on that cable, keeps it waterproof. So we're going to drill the hole for that next. I'm going to head into the pilot hole. I'm going to drill the big hole through there. Once we have that down there like that, let's thread through on the back side. We're going to thread this piece on the bottom down here. And now I'm just going to get it snug. You got the washers on the outside piece because it's going to snug the water out. Cable's going to run through here after I trim it, and then that'll clamp down on there. So that's all set. Now that's the only holes that I'm drilling in this box. The 4 to mount the ram mount, and then the 1 for the power, and that's it. I'm not drilling any more holes in this box. So, okay, with this Garmin Striker 5, confirmed the blue and brown are only used when you're sharing data. I'm not. I'm just going to cut these off. I'm going to go ahead and cut off here, run the cable through the cable gland that we put in there, and then splice this back in. All right, I went ahead and snipped it off, cut the blue and the brown off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this down into here, and it's a nice fit. Oh, almost messed up there. You don't want to do this mess up. This is key. You want to take the end of that cable gland and run it through here first. That would have been a bad mistake. All right, I'm going to run that down into the box. And I'm going to go ahead and open this box up here and just feed it through. And you don't have to necessarily tighten it up, right now to where you need it to be, but basically what's going to happen is as I tighten this thing down, it gets tight on that cable, so I can't pull that cable anymore, and that's what provides an extra waterproof seal on this part as well. So this will then plug into the transceiver, and I'm going to pull more water or more cable through here after I get all this splicing done and get everything figured out. So, all right, I've got my 2 ends spliced back on, and now I'm going to attach the other piece of wire that'll feed my Nocqua battery. All right, so basically I got it all wired up now. There's the Nocqua end that'll go to my battery, and just put in a little cable chase and left the fuse out of it so I can get to it and change fuse if I have to, but this will all go in the box. So that's the power part of it. That's done. So that's pretty easy. Okay, onto the transducer. Here's the mount for the transducer. This is what I'm gonna basically use the sealant on and put it on the bottom of the dry box. Transducer pretty much mounts like this to the unit, right? I think what I'll do is, I'm gonna go ahead and get this glued on, let that dry up before I hook this, and I'm just gonna have to run and put a zip tie back to hold it back in that bend position so cable doesn't keep coming down through. That's what I think I'll do. I think that'll be cleaner once that's in place. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the sealant on the back of this box, and it's gonna sit down here like that. So this is basically what I'm going for. The box upside down. I'm gonna seal this to here. That cable will come back through here. I'll zip tie it around that. It's gonna come up through this chute right here, and there's plenty of room that you saw, and it'll just come right on up over the top, and we'll curl it up on the mount. So, all right, I'm not saying it's the neatest thing you ever seen, but I think it'll get the job done. I'm just gonna let that dry and let that cure for 24 hours, and then I'll come back here and go ahead and finish up by attaching the transducer to it, and then we'll hook the battery up, and it ought to power up for us. Okay, it's been about 24 hours. There's the mount, and feels pretty solid there. So I think it's gonna be just fine. Here we have the transducer mounted. So basically I'm just pulling this cable back around here. I'm just gonna put a zip tie right around this part right here, and this will run up the back. Okay, so you kind of see what I did there. I just kind of looped that around. Again, I said I didn't want this to go in my box. So it's pretty simple. In my box, I've got my Knockwell battery. I've just looped the rest of these cables around and stuff. Some rope on top of here, some room here. But I'm gonna go ahead and close this down. Everything is plugged up at this point. And let's see what we see. I will say, you know, when I was putting this up and dealing with these wires, that transducer on the bottom, I put the weight on that, rocked and everything. That seemed to be a solid connection with that Loctite seal, waterproof or whatever water sealant I used on there. It seemed pretty good. So let's see if we get power up here. There we go. All right, guys, life happens, and haven't got to test this setup out. But this is basically an easy way to mount this thing to your dry pod. This is the Garmin. I got it powered up to my battery. I'm gonna turn that on. And there you go. Check it out, y'all. So one thing I do notice, I'm gonna have to tighten the mount right here. It's a little loose on that thing. So I think there's a screw hole right in the middle of that, right here, to tighten up, and I didn't see that. So we're gonna have to do that. But let's see what we got here. See what clear view looks like. There we go. But yeah, it's working, and it's an easy way. You can see the cables are all coiled up there. And so we're gonna just test this out a little bit. All right, guys, yeah, last time the problem just had one screw that was down the bottom was holding us. Now this is pretty solid on the mount there. So this isn't rocking side to side like it was. So pretty happy with the setup. It's really simple and easy to do. You don't have to go through all the rigmarole. There's just, I think, one hole I drilled in the box to make it happen, and got transducer fixed on there, and we're good to go, y'all. Hit that like and subscribe. We'll catch you next time.